So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. iPad mini 6 over 6 months later. Now this was the all new refresh redesigned iPad mini here, and I want to share with you my experience over my time using it. I did go with the space gray edition, and this iPad can be found now on places like Amazon and maybe some other third parties for around $400. However, at Apple it's still $499, around $550 with tax. A little bit of a high price compared to if you just pay a little bit more, you might get the iPad Air. This one gives you the Apple A15, which is actually the biggest screen A15 you're gonna get at the lowest price. This is cheaper than an iPhone 13, iPhone 13 Pro, Pro Max, whatever. Not cheaper than the SE, but the SE doesn't give you the modern big display with gestures. So this is actually a pretty good bargain for the chip you are getting in here. You can get this tablet in this space gray, pink starlight, as well as purple. For me, I like the classic space gray. Now, I want to talk to you right out the gate about the Jelly Scroll, because that's the big thing everybody wants to talk about with this tablet all the time is, oh, it has Jelly Scroll, stuff like that. It's a pass for me. Some people they're just going to straight up pass on it because of that. Now, it does occur, but I have to tell you, once you get used to using the tablet and you use it for a while, you just forget about it. It's really one of those things that they just have to make a sensationalized headline about just to, make something negative so you click. Now, for me personally, it is there, but it's not as big of a deal as people make it out to be. I think Apple will fix this on the next model, but again, it doesn't make this a no-go or a no-buy recommendation. It's still been a pretty great tablet. I still enjoy it just like I enjoy any other iPad. So I just wanted to get that right off the start. Next up, my thoughts on design. I love this design. It's a massive upgrade over the prior iPad mini, and I just never want to go back to that older style iPad mini. I just love the way this one looks. It looks like a little miniaturized iPad Pro. That's exactly what it looks like, and that's exactly what it feels like overall. It's all aluminum shell on the rear, has that single camera, does have some bezels around the edges, but that's good to give you something to hold on to. 8.3-inch screen. It just feels good. It's a really good size and it feels premium. Now, my thoughts on the actual weight of the product, it's only 293 grams. So to put that into perspective, the iPhone 13 Pro Max weighs around 240 grams. So it's only about 50 grams heavier, AKA it's actually not much heavier than a large smartphone. And it actually kind of feels like a wide, large smartphone, honestly. If you got big hands, you'll even be able to hold this thing like so. It kind of feels like that, but you get the benefits of iPadOS. This actually can fit in a large pant pocket in the rear, probably. It's not that big, and I like that. It's a great travel companion. It's a great tablet to use for maybe GPS in a car if you get the cellular model, something like that. Or even if you're just living in tight spaces and you just don't have room for big things, this can be a great product for you. Like it on a plane. It's good for stuff like that. It's good for school as well. If you're working in a big classroom and everybody's on top of each other, really good for that as well. So there's a lot of great uses for this thing. It's just a really good compact size, and I think it does have its place in the market. It doesn't feel overly rigid though because of that lightweight, so I would be a little concerned if I sat on it, it might bend or something like that. Probably not, but still, it just concerns me just a little bit. Like, it doesn't feel super rigid like the more premium, like 12-inch model of the iPad, but still feels pretty nice. My thoughts on this newer Touch ID, however, it was a little bit awkward at first. I wasn't used to pressing Touch ID up here. Kind of feels like the old iPhone 5S, but does have a Touch ID up there. Once I got used to it though, it's very fast and accurate, no problems there. I still prefer Face ID. I would rather have seen Face ID on here, especially considering iPads, you kind of use them in the house a lot, so you're not wearing a mask indoors, and mask mandates have been lifted, so I kind of would have liked to seen Face ID, but I get it. This is the cheaper technology for Apple to put on there, and it works flawlessly. It works pretty well. Now, we already talked about Jelly Scroll, but I do want to give you my overall thoughts on the display now as a whole. So the iPad mini's display here, 8.3 inches. Again, I think in landscape mode, it feels a little bit compacted because of the bezels, but overall, I still really enjoy it. You can see how in the portrait mode, how the applications are a little bit close together, because there's just not as much space as there would be on a larger iPad. You'll notice that. But its actual quality reminds me a lot of something like the iPhone 11, just blown up here. It is like a LCD panel on here. We do have 500 nits of brightness here, 327 ppi, so a Retina for sure quality. But overall, you know, the calibration again reminds me a lot of LCD panels Apple's done in the past. They've just extended it. Or you could even say some of the older iPad Pros kind of looks like that quite a bit, which is not a bad thing. It gets bright enough indoors. However, this is not the Pro level 800, 1000 nits of brightness on the screen. Other than that though, I can say I have thoroughly enjoyed its display. It doesn't have any cutouts, obtrusions, anything like that. Watching content and media looks great on here. You can see colors look fine. No major issues. And it does have enough room to do split screen and stuff like that. So if you do want to split applications, you can go ahead and easily do that on this tablet. And that's really what separates this from something like a large iPhone. So if you're thinking, well, I could just get a large iPhone, why would I get that? Well, this is the reason why, because you don't have iPadOS to do things like this. So yeah, overall, the screen, very good display. I think that it could be improved if Apple wants to take it to a Pro level. It could be a little bit brighter. It could be a little bit sharper. It can do stuff like that if they see that people want it, but I'm not sure they'll do that. Overall, it's a pretty stellar panel. Now, I will say that the Apple Pencil experience is pretty cool on here. It works just like pretty much any iPad. However, this wouldn't be my first choice for having, you know, Apple Pencil usage. The iPad, you know, Pros are just bigger to draw on and stuff like this. You easily can run out of space on here. So if you're like drawing or something, you're drawing the sun, whatever, you can easily run out of space on this tablet right here. So for me, it wasn't really my favorite for this. I like that it supports it, and I think it's cool that it supports Apple Pencil 2nd gen. But for me, what I would really use this for mostly is just taking notes. I think it's got enough space to take some notes and stuff like that, but I'm just not a fan of how much my hand covers the screen while I'm writing. But it does have Apple Pencil support, so if you're into using Apple Pencil based applications, that'll be for you. But I would recommend the iPad Air size if you're going to be doing a lot of Apple Pencil use. My thoughts on the iPadOS have been pretty good. I still like how iPads give you USB-C to connect cameras and stuff like that. There's enough room to do pretty much everything on here that you can do on any other iPad. However, the screen size, or the body size is too small, I think, for good size keyboards, unless you're going to connect your own full size Bluetooth keyboard. But it's kind of awkward because then your keyboard is much larger than the actual iPad itself. So for me, I found myself never really using keyboard with this one, and I just use my fingers and, you know, just use it the way it was intended to be used. But you can do things like LumaFusion on here. And I should mention that because the screen is a little bit smaller, that keyboard is pretty easy to use, kind of like so. Like with two thumbs, you can kind of type like this. So that's a good way that this can be used as well. But if you need to do some more serious stuff on here, this definitely has the power and can definitely get the job done. So if you're trying to compact your workflow and everything, the iPad Mini 6 can do that for you. A15 on here, just as fast as something like the Apple iPhone 13. So if you're looking for top-notch speed, you'll definitely get it here on the iPad Mini 6. It's been fantastic in pretty much every regard for me. Again, the Jelly Scroll does exist, but it's not a big deal. It hasn't stopped me from loving this product right here. One thing that has been pretty good as well is the battery life for the iPad Mini 6. Surprisingly, well, not surprisingly, but the battery life on here gets through easily a full day of usage. 8 hours for me with the brightness turned up, cranked up. It is rated at 10, but I don't get 10 if I have the brightness all the way up and I'm using it heavy. I get around 8 hours on here. But if you do crank down the brightness to about halfway and you're not overly taxing the CPU and just kind of using heavy stuff, just watching videos and stuff, you could easily get 10, 11 hours on here. One area about the iPad Mini 6 that's actually probably better than it needs to be is the camera performances on here. We do have 12 megapixel 4K 60 on the rear here. So if you actually wanted to use this to take photos and stuff, it wouldn't look too awkward, just simply because it's not that big. Also, on the front-facing camera, they put center stage on here as well. So this tablet gives you a really wide view. So the view is so wide that if you're doing a conference call or something like that, you can see people in the background. You could share your screen. Like, there's enough space to do stuff like that on this iPad mini. So definitely, I really got to say, they kind of knocked it out of the park with the type of cameras they're giving you. A couple other things I want to mention 6 months later. I do miss the 120 hertz from other iPads. It's not the biggest deal in the world because what you're constantly doing usually on iPads is consuming media. So you don't really scroll too much until you start reading and stuff. However, again, I'd like to see this have a ProMotion display. I think that would require an iPad mini Pro. I'm not sure Apple would do that just because this is kind of a niche size. I'm not sure if they would bring that along, but at the same time, it's still a great product. I kind of missed the 120 hertz from the iPhones and the iPad Pros here, but that's just my own personal take. I'm not sure everybody cares about that. The next thing I think about a lot with this product is it really a necessary product if you have a large iPhone? And the answer to that question is it depends. It depends on if you like to split screen and you like to use iPadOS. If you do, then it can serve a necessary purpose in your life because it can give you more productivity elements that you wouldn't be able to get on your iPhone. However, I think if you have a laptop and a big iPhone, this product probably is not a necessary purchase for you. But for some people who just don't want to buy an iPhone, they use an Android phone, they want to experience iOS or iPadOS, this could be a great product if you just want to skip out on an iPhone and you have a computer already. This could be a great way to experience Apple. So my final conclusion on the iPad mini 6 over my 6 months of experience is it's been a pretty great experience. I'm not going to say it's flawless, but it's pretty good. You know, it's freaking fast with the A15 in here. It looks beautiful. It's got some nice colors. Feels really good in the hand in terms of the size. It destroys the last one in design. I'd give it a final conclusion. I'd give it a score of an 8 out of 10. I'm going to take off 1 point for Apple's misstep in having that little jelly scroll thing that annoys a lot of people. Again, it wasn't the biggest deal to me, but it has to be mentioned or else I'm just not being, I can't feel like I'm being honest if I don't mention it. Again, it didn't bother me, but I'm just taking a point off for the fact that it bothers a lot of people. And the second point I'm taking off is just the fact that it doesn't have a 120 hertz display because it just kind of feels like an iPad Pro without the Pro screen. So that's just a little thing I wanted to take off. Other than that, it would have been, if those two things were fixed, it would have been a flawless iPad right there. Other than that, it's, for a lot of people, it already is flawless. So excellent iPad experience over my 6 months of usage. I'm actually pretty excited to see what they do next with the mini line. Let me know your thoughts on the iPad mini 6. Do you have one? Do you plan on buying one? If so, share your comments down below in the comment section of this video. Subscribe if you haven't already. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.